The stars had watched humanity for 300 years. Hidden in the darkness between worlds, the Velen hegemony observed every step of human progress. They watched humans discover fire on distant continents. They watched them build cities of stone and glass. They watched them reach for the moon and plant flags on Mars, and with each passing decade the hegemony grew more afraid. In the great council chambers of the hegemony homeworld, 12 species gathered to discuss the human problem. They sat in a circle of floating platforms, each representative more alien than the last. Some had scales, some had wings, some existed as clouds of light, but they all agreed on one thing: humanity was dangerous. "They fight each other constantly," said the hegemony's chief observer. "They have wars over land, over resources, over ideas. They are violent by nature. And yet they grow stronger with each conflict," replied another council member. "Each war teaches them new ways to kill. Each peace makes their technology leap forward." The council leader, a creature of shadow and whisper, spoke the words that would seal Earth's fate. "We have seen this pattern before. A violent species reaches for the stars. They spread like a disease. They consume everything in their path. We must act now before they develop faster than light travel." The vote was unanimous. Earth would be cleansed. 400 warships would travel to the Sol system and burn humanity from existence. It was not cruelty, the council told themselves. It was survival. Far away, on the blue planet called Earth, Captain Park Doan stood at the window of his office and watched the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war. 20 years ago, he had fought in the Mars Rebellion. 10 years ago, he had commanded the defense of the asteroid mining stations. Now he led Earth's orbital defense network, a job that mostly involved paperwork and politics. His phone buzzed. It was Dr. Yoon Hanna from the Global Science Coalition. "Captain, we need to meet. Tonight, it cannot wait." An hour later, Park Do-eun sat in a secure room deep beneath the mountains of Korea. Across the table sat Dr. Yoon Hanna, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and nervous hands. Behind her, a holographic display showed the solar system. 3 days ago, our deep space sensors detected something, Hanna said. A gravitational disturbance at the edge of the system. Something very large. She pressed a button and the display zoomed outward. A red dot appeared at the boundary of the solar system. At first, we thought it was a rogue asteroid. But asteroids don't decelerate. This object is slowing down. "It's coming here on purpose." Park Do-eun leaned forward. "How large?" "We estimate 400 individual objects, each one bigger than our largest spacecraft. They're traveling in formation." The room fell silent. Park Do-eun had trained for many scenarios: asteroid impacts, solar flares, terrorist attacks. He had never trained for this. "How long until they arrive?" 18 months. "Maybe less." Park Do-eun stood up and walked to the display. He stared at the red dot for a long time. Then he spoke words that would change human history. "Call Admiral Kong Tai-woo. Call General No Jian. Call everyone with the authority to know. We have 18 months to prepare for something we don't understand." 3 days later, the leaders of Earth gathered in that same underground room. Admiral Kong Tai-woo sat at the head of the table, his decorated uniform heavy with medals from wars past. He was 70 years old and had spent 50 of those years defending humanity from itself. Now he faced something far worse. "We have confirmed Dr. Yoon's findings," the admiral said. 400 objects approaching Earth. They have changed course twice to match our planet's orbit. This is not natural. Someone is coming. "Could they be peaceful?" asked one of the politicians. Park Do-eun shook his head. "You don't send 400 ships for a peaceful visit, you send one." General No Jian, a woman with cold eyes and secrets behind them, raised her hand. "There is something the rest of you need to know. Something that has been classified for 15 years. She stood up and dimmed the lights. A new image appeared on the screen. Strange machinery, alien symbols, technology that looked nothing like human design. 15 years ago, our Mars expedition discovered artifacts in an underground chamber. not human artifacts. We have been studying them in secret ever since, reverse engineering them, learning. The room erupted in chaos. Politicians shouted about illegal programs. Scientists demanded access to the research. Military leaders argued about chain of command. Admiral Kang Tae-woo silenced them with a raised hand. What have you learned, General? Enough to know that whoever made these artifacts is not the only species in the galaxy. There are many. And based on what we found, some of them are very old, very powerful, and very aggressive. Park Do-eun looked at the alien machinery on the screen. Can we use any of it? Can we defend ourselves? General No smiled, and for the first time, hope entered the room. We have weapons they've never seen, ships they don't know exist, technology they think is impossible. But we have to be smart about this. If they're coming to destroy us, they must think we're weak. They must think we're easy prey. Park Do-eun understood immediately. You want them to underestimate us. I want them to think we're primitives living in mud huts. And when they get close enough, I want to show them exactly what humanity can do. The plan that would save Earth began to take shape in that underground room, 18 months. 400 enemy ships. And a trap that would change the galaxy forever. Outside, the stars continued to shine, cold and distant. But they would not seem so frightening for much longer. 6 months had passed since the discovery. The alien fleet had crossed half the distance to Earth, and humanity worked in desperate silence. Every major government had been told the truth. Every military force had received new orders. And the greatest secret in human history remained hidden from public eyes. Park Do-eun stood in an underground hangar that stretched for kilometers beneath the Nevada desert. Around him, engineers and soldiers worked on machines that should not exist. Sleek black fighters hung from the ceiling like sleeping birds of prey. Massive warships rested in dry docks, their hulls made of metals that humanity had not known existed 5 years ago. We call them shadow wings, said Commander Bae-suji, walking beside him. She was 38 years old, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been Park Do-eun's second-in-command for 10 years, and he trusted her more than anyone alive. Completely invisible to radar, heat sensors, and every detection method we know of. And thanks to the alien technology we recovered, they can move faster than anything the enemy has ever seen. Park Do-eun touched the cold metal of a fighter's wing. How many do we have? 3,000 ground-based fighters, 200 orbital assault ships, and 12 capital ships hidden on the dark side of the moon. Sugi paused. It's not enough to match their fleet, but it might be enough to surprise them. Surprise is good, but we need more than surprise. Park Do-eun turned to face her. We need them to walk into a trap so perfect that they never see it coming. That evening, the War Council met to finalize. Operation Silent Earth. Dr. Yoon Hana presented the technical details while Professor Choi Min-ho, a thin man with glasses and ink-stained fingers, explained the psychology behind it. We have studied every piece of alien communication we could find, Min-ho said. The species approaching us calls themselves the Velen hegemony. They are old, they are powerful, and they are arrogant. They have destroyed dozens of species before us, and they have never faced serious resistance. He put a document on the screen. Alien symbols filled the page. 3 weeks ago, they sent a transmission. It took us 2 weeks to decode it. The message is what they call a cleansing declaration. They believe we are primitive. They believe we have no space technology worth noticing. They plan to burn our planet clean and move on to other worlds. Admiral Kang Tae-woo leaned forward. They don't know about our Mars colonies? Our asteroid stations? They see them, but they don't consider them a threat. To the hegemony, a species that hasn't developed faster than light travel is barely more than animals. They think our space stations are toys. Our weapons are jokes. Our species is already dead. We just don't know it yet. Park Do-eun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then let's make them believe they're right. Operation Silent Earth began the next day. Across the planet, humanity started to hide. Satellites were moved behind the moon or disguised as space debris. Cities activated holographic systems that made them appear abandoned or primitive. Military bases vanished underground. Ships in orbit went dark, floating like dead things among the asteroids. Commander Bei Suji coordinated the deception from a command center in Antarctica. Screens surrounded her, showing feeds from every continent. "Tokyo is dark," reported one operator. "Seoul is projecting medieval village overlay. European grid is offline. Paris, London, and Berlin all showing pre-industrial signatures. North American systems are live. New York appears to be farmland. Los Angeles shows as a fishing village." Suji watched the numbers change on her main screen. To any observer from space, Earth was transforming. A planet of 8 billion people, with cities of glass and steel, was becoming a world of farmers and fishermen. Technology vanished. Industry disappeared. Humanity looked exactly like the primitive species the hegemony expected to find. In Korea, Dr. Yoon Hana worked on a different part of the plan. She stood in a laboratory filled with alien artifacts, studying energy patterns that human science could barely understand. "The alien technology uses a specific frequency to power their ships," she explained to Park Do-eun during his visit. "Every engine, every weapon, every life support system depends on this frequency. If we can disrupt it, even for a few minutes, their entire fleet goes dead. Can you build something that does that?" Hannah held up a small device, no bigger than a phone. "I already have. But there's a problem. The range is limited. The enemy fleet needs to be in low Earth orbit for this to work. Close enough to touch our atmosphere." Park Do-eun understood. "So we need to let them get close. Really close. Close enough to think they've already won. And then we turn off their ships and tear them apart?" The months passed quickly. The alien fleet grew larger on humanity's sensors, 400 ships of death moving closer every day. On Earth, the performance continued. People lived underground or in disguised communities. Smoke rose from fake villages. Fishing boats sailed on oceans, performing for an audience of stars. 8 months after the discovery, the hegemony fleet entered the outer solar system. They passed Jupiter without slowing. They cruised past Mars, noting the primitive stations there. They aimed straight for Earth, confident in their mission of extinction. And humanity waited in the darkness, hidden and ready, the greatest trap in history set to spring. Park Do-eun stood in his command bunker beneath the Himalayas and watched the enemy approach. Around him, screens showed the positions of every hidden human ship. Every secret weapon, every piece of technology the enemy believed did not exist. "They're entering lunar orbit," Suji reported. "Still, no indication they've detected anything unusual." "Good." Park Do-eun straightened his uniform. "Send word to all commanders. The moment they enter Earth orbit, we strike. No warnings. No mercy. They came to kill our species. Let's show them they picked the wrong planet." The trap was set. The prey was approaching, and Earth held its breath, waiting for the moment that would change everything. Fleet Commander Varath stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the blue planet below. He had destroyed 11 worlds in his career. He had burned civilizations to ash and felt nothing but satisfaction. Today would be no different. "Report," he commanded. His voice was like gravel scraping against stone. "Scans complete, Commander. The planet shows no advanced technology. Population approximately 8 billion. No orbital defenses. No military vessels. They have primitive satellites and basic space stations, nothing more." Vorath made a sound that passed for laughter among his species. "As expected. These creatures haven't even left their own system. Send scout ships to confirm. I want visual evidence of their weakness before we begin the cleansing." 6 small ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. They flew over continents, scanning everything below. They saw villages of wood and stone. They saw farmers working in fields. They saw boats on rivers and horses on roads. Nothing threatened them. Nothing even noticed them. The scouts returned with their reports, and Vorath's confidence grew stronger. Primitives, he announced to his officers. Not worth the weapons we'll spend on them. Move the fleet into low orbit. Begin charging the sterilization beams. We'll burn them clean within the hour. 400 warships moved into position around Earth, their massive weapons pointed downward, ready to turn oceans to steam and continents to glass. On every ship, alien crews prepared for another easy victory. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, Park Do-eun watched them come. All ships in position, Commander Bae-suji reported. They're exactly where we need them. Park Do-eun looked at the screens showing enemy positions. Every alien ship was marked in red. Every hidden human ship was marked in blue. The red dots surrounded Earth like a swarm of locusts. The blue dots waited in the darkness, unseen and ready. Dr. Yoon, he said into his communicator. Are you ready? Hannah's voice came back clear and calm. The disruption field is charged. On your command, every alien ship in orbit will lose power. They'll drift for approximately 4 minutes before their backup systems activate. 4 minutes. Park Do-eun turned to Sugi. Can we destroy 400 ships in 4 minutes? Suji smiled. It was a hunter's smile. We only need to destroy their weapons and engines. 4 minutes is plenty. Park Do-eun took a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything humanity had built, everything they had hidden, everything they had prepared came down to the next few minutes. All forces, this is Fleet Admiral Park Do-eun. The enemy is in position. They think we're helpless. They think we're prey. He paused. Show them how wrong they are. Dr. Yoon, activate the disruption field. All forces attack. On the flagship, Commander Vorath was giving his final orders when every light on his ship went dark. The engines fell silent. The weapons powered down. The artificial gravity failed, and his officers began to float in sudden weightlessness. What is happening? He roared, Report! Someone report. But no one could answer. Every screen was dead. Every system was silent. The mighty warship had become a floating tomb. Across the fleet, 400 ships experienced the same failure. They drifted helplessly in orbit, their crews scrambling in the darkness to understand what had happened. And then the sky filled with fire. Lieutenant Shin Yuna had waited her entire life for this moment. She was 29 years old and had trained for 3 years in secret, learning to fly machines that officially did not exist. Now she led the first wave of Shadow Wing fighters out of hidden bases across Earth. Squadron leaders, follow my lead, she commanded. Target their engine sections first. Then weapons. Make every shot count. 3,000 fighters rose from Earth like angry wasps. They moved in perfect formation, invisible to any sensor the enemy possessed. In the darkness of space, they found their targets and opened fire. The first alien warship exploded in a ball of light. Then another. Then a dozen more. Weapons that no species had ever seen tore through hegemony armor like paper. Ships that had destroyed worlds found themselves helpless against an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. From the dark side of the moon, Commander Bae-suji led the orbital assault fleet. 200 human warships emerged from hiding, cutting off any chance of retreat. No ship leaves this system, Suji ordered. Any vessel that tries to run, destroy it completely. We cannot let them warn the others. The battle became a hunt. Alien ships tried to power their backup systems, but human fighters were already inside their defensive perimeters. Capital ships ripped through hegemony vessels with weapons powered by stolen alien technology. Earth's surface launched missiles that tracked targets with impossible accuracy. On the flagship, Commander Vorath finally managed to restore partial power. Emergency lights flickered on. A single screen came to life, showing him what was happening outside. His fleet was dying. Ships he had commanded for centuries burned around him. The primitives, the animals, the creatures he had come to exterminate were tearing his armada apart. Impossible, he whispered. This is impossible. A human ship appeared beside his flagship. Its weapons charged, its soldiers prepared to board. The last thing Commander Vorath saw before the hull breached was human faces on his screen. They did not look primitive. They did not look weak. They looked like predators who had finally caught their prey. 6 hours later, it was over. Of the 400 hegemony ships, 312 were destroyed. 67 had been captured intact. 21 had managed to escape, fleeing into deep space with tales of horror. Park Doan stood in the command center, surrounded by exhausted officers celebrating their impossible victory. They had lost ships. They had lost people. But they had survived. Earth had survived. "Send a message on all captured frequencies," he ordered. "Let the galaxy know what happened here. Let them know that humanity will not be cleansed." The message went out across the stars, a declaration that changed everything. "You came to end us. You found us ready. We are humanity, and we are no one's prey." The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. In council chambers and military bases, in hidden colonies and conquered worlds, every species heard the same impossible story. A primitive planet had destroyed a hegemony cleansing fleet. On the hegemony homeworld, Counselor Mareth watched the battle recordings for the 20th time. The footage showed everything, from the moment the disruption field activated to the final capture of Commander Vorath's flagship. It showed human fighters moving like ghosts through space. It showed weapons that should not exist. It showed a species that had hidden its true strength and waited for the perfect moment to strike. "I warned the council," Mareth said quietly to his assistant. "I told them we should study this species more carefully. I told them something was wrong with our intelligence." "The council did not listen," the assistant replied. "No, they were too eager for another easy victory. And now 300 ships are gone? Thousands of our people are dead or captured. And a species we dismissed as animals has shown the galaxy that the hegemony can be beaten." The implications were terrifying. For 10,000 years, the hegemony had maintained control through fear. No one resisted because no one believed resistance was possible. But now that belief was shattered. Now every conquered species, every hidden civilization, every world that had bowed to hegemony power would wonder, if the humans could do it, why not us? Back on Earth, humanity faced the reality of what they had done. They had won the battle, but the war had just begun. Ambassador Song Yunji had spent 30 years as a diplomat, negotiating treaties between nations, ending conflicts with words instead of weapons. Now she faced the strangest assignment of her career, representing humanity to the galaxy. "The captured aliens have been talking," she reported to the War Council. "They're terrified, but they're also confused. They don't understand how we hid our technology. They don't understand how we knew they were coming. Most importantly, they don't understand why we didn't just surrender." "Surrender was never an option," Admiral Kong Tai-Wu replied. "They came to kill us all. Every man, woman, and child on Earth." "I know, but the aliens didn't see it that way. To them, cleansing is just ... maintenance, like removing weeds from a garden. They genuinely believed they were doing the galaxy a favor by eliminating us." Park Doan shook his head. "Then they need to learn that we're not weeds. We're something they've never encountered before." Dr. Yun Hana had spent the week since the battle studying captured alien databases. What she found changed everything. "Earth wasn't the first," she told the council. "The hegemony has been cleansing worlds for 10,000 years. Hundreds of species destroyed. Thousands of planets burned clean. But here's the thing, not all of them died." She put a star map on the screen. 7 points of light blinked in different parts of the galaxy. Some species survived. They hid. They went underground or fled to remote systems. They've been waiting, watching, hoping that someday the hegemony would face a challenge. And now they know that challenge exists. "Can we contact them?" Park Doan asked. "Better than that. They've already contacted us. Our broadcast went out on captured frequencies, remember? 7 different species have responded. They want to meet. They want to know if humanity is real. Captain Quan Taeyang was 45 years old and had commanded ships since he was 20. He had led the attack on the Hegemony flagship, and he had been the first human to set foot on an alien vessel. Now he had a new mission: take humanity's first interstellar voyage and find their potential allies. His ship was the captured flagship, repaired and modified with human technology. The crew had renamed it Defiance, a name that felt right for humanity's first true starship. "The journey will take 3 months," Quan Taeyang told his crew before departure. "We're going to meet species that have been hiding from the hegemony for thousands of years. We're going to tell them they don't have to hide anymore. And we're going to build something the galaxy has never seen, an alliance of survivors." The Defiance jumped to faster-than-light speed and vanished from the solar system. On Earth, humanity watched it go with hope and fear in equal measure. While Quan Taeyang traveled, Park Do-eun prepared for the inevitable response. The hegemony would not accept this defeat. They would return with a larger fleet, more weapons, more determination. Earth had to be ready. "We've started building new ships," Commander Bae Suji reported. "Factories are running at full capacity, but we're looking at least 2 years before we can match even half of what we destroyed." 2 years might be too long," Park Do-eun replied. "The hegemony will want revenge quickly. They can't afford to let this stand." General No Jian entered the room with a tablet in her hand. "Then you'll want to see this. Our intelligence teams have been monitoring hegemony communications. They're assembling a new fleet. 2,000 ships." The room fell silent. 2,000. 5 times larger than the first invasion. "How long until they arrive?" Park Do-eun asked. "They're still gathering forces. We estimate 18 months, maybe 2 years. Park Do-eun looked at the star map on the wall. Somewhere out there, Captain Quan Taeyang was searching for allies. Somewhere out there, 7 species waited to see if humanity was the answer to their prayers. And somewhere out there, the hegemony was gathering the largest fleet in its history. Then we have 18 months to change everything," Park Do-eun said. "Humanity survived alone. But we won't win alone. We need those allies. We need to turn this system into a fortress. And we need to make the hegemony understand that attacking Earth will cost more than they can afford to pay." The preparations began. Earth transformed from a hidden world into an armed camp. And across the galaxy whispers spread, "The humans are coming. The humans are real. And maybe, just maybe, the time has finally come to fight back." Captain Quan Taeyang's mission had succeeded beyond all hopes. The 7 surviving species were real, and they were ready to fight. The Vorin had hidden in asteroid belts for 2,000 years, perfecting stealth technology. The Caliph had built underground cities on frozen moons, waiting for a signal that freedom was possible. The Shen had preserved their culture in generation ships, traveling endlessly to avoid hegemony detection. Each species brought different strengths. Each had different reasons to hate the hegemony, and each had chosen to stand with humanity in the war to come. The Coalition of the Hidden, they called themselves. 7 species, including humanity, united by survival and hope. Fleet Admiral Park Do-eun stood on the Bridge of Unity, the massive space station that served as Coalition headquarters. Through the windows, he could see ships from 8 different worlds training together. Human fighters flew alongside Vorin stealth craft. Caliph heavy cruisers practiced formations with Shen carrier ships. It was a sight that would have been impossible 3 years ago. Ambassador Song Yunji joined him at the window. "The hegemony fleet will arrive within the month. 2,000 ships? The largest force they've ever assembled." "I know," Park Do-eun replied. "But they're thinking like they always have. They're coming to destroy a planet. They don't understand that we're not defending a planet anymore. We're attacking an empire." The plan was called Operation Reversal. It was Park Do-eun's final masterpiece, designed with input from every coalition species. The strategy was simple: don't wait for the enemy. Become the enemy's nightmare. Dr. Yoon Hana had spent 3 years improving her disruption technology. The original device had required enemy ships to be in close orbit. The new version could be carried by small drones and deployed anywhere in the galaxy. Each drone can disable enemy ships in a radius of 50 kilometers, Hannah explained to the Coalition commanders. We've built 10,000 of them. But the real weapon isn't the drones. It's the idea. She put a galaxy map on the screen. Thousands of dots appeared, marking every world currently under hegemony control. For 10,000 years, the hegemony has kept order through fear. Conquered species don't rebel because they believe rebellion is impossible. But what if we show them it's not? What if we give them weapons? What if we give them hope? The Coalition had spent 3 years preparing, not just building ships and training soldiers, but reaching out to every conquered world. Smuggling weapons, training resistance fighters, planting the seeds of revolution on 1,000 planets. The hegemony's great fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find a desperate humanity preparing for a last stand. Instead, they found emptiness. Earth was there, of course. The planet hung in space like a jewel, blue and green and beautiful. But the human fleet was gone. The Coalition forces had vanished. Only a handful of patrol ships remained, circling the planet like lonely guardians. On the hegemony flagship, the new fleet commander studied his sensors with confusion. Where are they? Our intelligence showed they had hundreds of ships. Perhaps they fled, suggested an officer. Perhaps they realized they couldn't win and ran. Humanity doesn't run? We learned that the hard way. The commander thought for a long moment. This is another trap. They're hiding somewhere, waiting to strike. He was right about the trap. He was wrong about where it would spring. At that exact moment, across the galaxy, 1,000 rebellions began. On the hegemony homeworld, explosions rocked the capital city. Resistance fighters, armed with human weapons and trained by Coalition soldiers, attacked military installations. The planet's communication network went dark. On conquered worlds throughout hegemony space, the same pattern repeated. Ships lost power as disruption drones activated. Slaves rose against their masters. Military bases fell to coordinated attacks. The machinery of empire began to break. And leading the charge, the Coalition fleet emerged from hiding, not at Earth, but at the heart of hegemony territory. Fleet Admiral Park Doan stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Defiant Hope, as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel above the hegemony homeworld. Around him, 300 Coalition warships appeared, their weapons charged and ready. "Send the message," he ordered. Ambassador Song Yunji's voice broadcast across the planet below. "People of the hegemony, this is the Coalition of the Hidden. For 10,000 years you have burned worlds and enslaved species. You came to Earth to end humanity, and instead you freed the galaxy. Your fleet stands at Sol, protecting nothing. Your empire burns around you, and we stand at your door, offering you a choice." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Surrender your leaders, free your slaves, join the community of equal species, or watch your civilization fall. The choice is yours. You have 1 hour." On the hegemony flagship at Sol, the fleet commander received the news with growing horror. Reports flooded in from across the empire. Rebellions everywhere. Communications cut. Military forces overwhelmed. And the enemy fleet, the fleet he had come to destroy, was now orbiting his homeworld. "What do we do?" asked his second-in-command. The commander looked at the beautiful blue planet below him. Earth, the world they had come to cleanse. The world that had somehow become the most dangerous place in the galaxy. "We go home," he said quietly. "We try to save what we can." The great hegemony fleet turned away from Earth without firing a single shot. They raced back toward their homeworld, but it was already too late. The empire was crumbling faster than any ship could fly. The war lasted another 3 years, but the outcome was never in doubt. The hegemony fractured into 100 pieces. Conquered species declared independence. Former slaves built new nations. And at the center of it all, the Coalition grew stronger. A new galactic council formed, with representatives from every free species. Ambassador Song Yunji gave the opening address in a chamber filled with beings from 100 worlds. "You thought we were prey," she said. "You thought our silence meant weakness? But we were never silent. We were listening. We were learning. And when you came for us, we were ready. Let this be the lesson of Earth. The trap you set may become your doom, and the species you underestimate may become your liberator." Fleet Admiral Park Do-eun retired after the war. He returned to Korea and bought a small farm in the mountains, far from the politics and ceremonies that followed victory. Sometimes at night he would sit outside and look up at the stars. They had seemed so frightening once. Distant lights hiding unknown dangers. Now they seemed different. Not frightening, but full of promise. Full of friends. Somewhere up there, coalition ships patrolled the new borders of freedom. Somewhere up there, species that had been enemies were learning to be neighbors. Somewhere up there, the galaxy was healing. Park Do-eun smiled and went inside. Tomorrow, there would be work to do in the garden. But tonight he could rest. He had helped save humanity. He had helped free the galaxy. And the stars, at last, seemed like home.